Hey YouTube, my name's Nick James and I'm going to be teaching you how to play guitar. I've been playing guitar over 25 years and wanted to share some of the concepts that help me learn the best and hopefully save you a lot of time. The topic we're going to cover today is playing your open chord shapes up and down the neck. So in previous videos we learned what those open chord shapes are, which are C, A, G, E, and D. And you can play the E shape as a minor chord or add the major third to make it a major chord. Same with A. You can move this minor third to a major third, so it's A major. And same with D. You can turn a D major into a D minor by just dropping the major third to a minor third. Now, after we learned those open chord shapes, we started to understand the concept of taking those shapes and playing them in different places up the neck with bar chords. And your bar chords use the E shape. So if this is E major and I wanted to play G major using the same E shape, I would move my root note up to G, which is on the 3rd fret of the E string. So instead of playing an open E, I'm using G and using that same shape to play G major. While barring the whole 3rd fret, the rest of my fingers are recreating that E shape. And same with the A shape. If you wanted to play an A-shaped bar chord here for C, instead of using the open A and playing A major, you can root the bar chord on the 3rd fret of the A string to make it a C note, and then recreate that same bar chord shape, or A shape, and play it as a bar chord. And we're going to start to learn that you can take, one chord and play it up and down the neck, and how that's going to actually help you learn how to solo, and should be the first thing you do before you ever start learning scales or try to improvise, because these chord shapes are going to include the 3 most important notes you play in any scale. So let's get started. The C shape is what we're going to play first, and we're going to actually play the C chord in all 5 shapes up the neck. So if we start on the open C major that we already learned, we're going to use the same root note and actually play C in an A shape here. The next chord shape that we're going to run into is the G-shaped C chord. So if we wanted to, instead of playing G up here, if we wanted to use the same shape to play C, we're going to root it on the C note of the E string, so the 8th fret, and then we're going to be playing E on the A string, which is the 7th fret, and then we're going to be reusing that same bar chord from the shape below to help create a G-shape C major chord. And then the bottom part of it is just going to look exactly like the bottom of a G-shaped chord. So these chord shapes spell out caged, and it's a really hot topic in the guitar community because it's controversial. Some people like it, some people don't. I, without a doubt, think it's the most important concept for learning guitar, because if you just try to learn scales, you don't have the root, 3rd, and 5th mapped out in your head, and you're just, looking at these as dots on a fretboard instead of target notes or different notes that make the most sense to play. So after you learn the C shape, A shape, G shape, we have our E-shaped C chord, which uses the same root note as the G shape. We're borrowing that and borrowing the whole 8th fret to use that E shape. And then the last shape that you're going to be playing C major in is the D. What I do typically is move this note and play it all the way on the 12th fret of the low E string, and then I'll keep this 5th here, which is G. So we have C, G, and then we're going to play C right here as well. To play a D-shaped C chord. And why this is so important is because as you begin to solo and learn scales, you're going to be able to pick out the root, 3rd, and 5th by referencing these chord shapes. So if I'm playing down here in C major, I know the 3rd is right here, E on the D string, and I could slide into it and play C. That instantly sounds like music. Same thing with this A shape. And the G shape. So this gives you some structure to learn those most important notes, the root, 3rd, and 5th, before you ever start learning the scales. So if I were just to focus on these bottom 3 strings, you'll see that this C major triad, and we call it a triad because it's including all 3 notes in the C major chord, which is G, C, and E. And C is the 1. And then E is the 3rd, because if we count up in the alphabet C, D, E, we'll have our 1st and 3rd, and then on top of that, open G is the 5th. C, D, E, F, G is the 5th. So this C-shaped C chord, the bottom of it kind of looks like a D shape. You're really kind of recreating that with these open strings. And then in this next chunk here, we're going to see that this is right out of the A shape. So this is a triad for C major that includes the 5th, which is G, the 3rd, which is E, and the 1, which is C. And we're going to borrow these same notes right here to use them in the G shape, where we're playing C all the way up on the 8th fret of the high E string. And we're going to use this same C to help us play the triad in the E-shaped C chord. So I know when you're borrowing the whole fret, you can kind of get lost in what's really below your root note and, chunk of the E shape that you have here. But at the bottom, what you're left with is a C major triad. And then the last one is the D shape. So that includes, again, the 3rd, 1st, and 5th. E, C, and G. And you can start to see why this is so important, because it gives me instant access to every hand position without even overthinking it. You know, I have these same chord shapes that I learned, you know, in the very beginning, but I'm able to leverage them to actually see what notes I want to hit. And then the really cool thing is that once you start soloing, you can, you know, use the same scale, but in C major, for instance, when we play F, the 4, and G the 5th, the notes included in F major and G major are in the C major scale. So they are, you know, going to be found in the scale if you learn it. But if you target, again, the triads, you're going to have instant access to playing over that chord. So when the chord change happens, you can start to outline each chord by just targeting these chord shapes. So a lot more to come on that, but wanted to at least kind of tease the idea to help you understand that these chord shapes are so important for soloing. You shouldn't, you know, even think about learning scales or pentatonics without, you know, at least understanding these chord shapes up and down the neck. And then we'll get into, you know, learning the actual scale and what I would think is best to prioritize. But you know, first things first is, can you play a C major in all 5 shapes? That's C major in the C shape, C major in the A shape, G shape, E shape, and D shape.